Justice served cold. These officers swore to uphold the law, but their badges became a shield for corruption.
Count 8. Defendant is guilty of the crime of forcible oral sodomy, and punishment is set at 20 years.
Same bag being palmed in your hand that you later put in her purse and acted like you found out of that purse.
As these three dirty cops, who once commanded the respect of their police force, face sentences for their crimes, the illusion of the badge starts to crumble. Let's examine the raw reactions of these fallen guardians as the weight of their betrayal sinks in. Witness disbelief turn into desperation, and see if remorse is displayed in the face of a lifetime behind bars.
So what you just presented to this jury is absolutely absurd and not factual at all.
Welcome to today's hearing at the Oklahoma County District Court for the shocking crimes and sentencing of corrupt cop Daniel Holtzclaw. In December 2015, Holtzclaw, a former police officer with the Oklahoma City Police Department, was convicted of multiple counts of rape, battery, and other sex offenses. This case sent shockwaves through the nation, exposing the dark underbelly of police corruption and abuse of power. Holtzclaw abused his position as an officer, targeting African-American women with criminal records and using his authority to coerce them into sexual acts. In order to understand the shocking events that unfolded, it is essential to delve into the background and early life of this former police officer. Daniel Ken Holtzclaw was born on December 10, 1986, in Guam. Growing up, he had dreams of becoming a professional football player. After graduating from Enid High School in 2005, Holtzclaw pursued his passion for football and played for Eastern Michigan University. However, his dreams of making it to the NFL were shattered, and he found himself at a crossroads. Undeterred, Holtzclaw decided to pursue a career in law enforcement. In 2010, he graduated from Eastern Michigan University with a degree in criminal justice. With his newfound knowledge and ambition, he joined the Oklahoma City Police Department, ready to serve and protect the community. Little did anyone know at the time, but behind Holtzclaw's badge and uniform lay a dark and sinister side. As he embarked on his career as a police officer, he would soon abuse his position of authority in the most unimaginable way. Holtzclaw's crimes took place between December 2013 and June 2014. He specifically targeted predominantly African-American women in low-income neighborhoods. It is important to note that many of these women had outstanding warrants or criminal records, making them vulnerable targets for Holtzclaw's manipulation. Using his position as a police officer, Holtzclaw would run background checks on his victims, gathering information that he would later use to coerce them into sexual acts. This abuse of power is truly horrifying and highlights the depths to which Holtzclaw was willing to sink in order to satisfy his perverse desires.
You think you have a high sex drive?
Yeah.
Do you like oral sex? Normal?
I like it all.
The offenses committed by Holtzclaw came to light when one courageous victim, Janie Ligons, decided to report the assault to the police. It took immense bravery for Ligons to come forward, knowing the potential consequences of accusing a police officer. Her actions would set in motion a series of events that would ultimately expose the truth behind Holtzclaw's heinous acts. 2 months after Ligons' report, Holtzclaw was arrested and charged with 16 counts of sexual abuse offenses. As the investigation unfolded, a total of 13 women came forward, willing to testify against him. Their collective stories painted a chilling picture of a man who had used his badge as a weapon to prey on the vulnerable. The trial that followed was a harrowing ordeal for both the victims and the public. Holtzclaw pleaded not guilty to all charges, attempting to maintain his innocence in the face of overwhelming evidence. However, the jury saw through his lies and manipulation, ultimately convicting him on 18 charges, including first-degree rape, sexual battery, and stalking. The trial of Daniel Holtzclaw was a highly anticipated event, drawing attention from both the local community and the nation at large. The courtroom became a battleground where the truth would be revealed and justice sought for the victims. During the trial, the prosecution presented a compelling case against Holtzclaw, highlighting the extensive evidence that linked him to the crimes. One crucial piece of evidence was the DNA found on one of the victims, which matched Holtzclaw's genetic profile. This DNA evidence was a powerful testament to the truth behind the victims' accounts. However, Holtzclaw's defense team attempted to cast doubt on the DNA evidence, arguing that it could be explained by secondary transfer. They claimed that the DNA could have been transferred innocently without Holtzclaw's direct involvement in the crimes. Despite these efforts, the jury remained steadfast in their conviction of Holtzclaw's guilt. The defense also sought to undermine the credibility of the victims by bringing up their criminal records. They argued that Holtzclaw deliberately chose victims with criminal histories, suggesting that their accounts were unreliable, their vulnerabilities, and using his position of authority to coerce them. In the end, the jury saw through the defense's attempts to discredit the victims and Holtzclaw's claims of innocence. They convicted him on 18 of the 36 charges he faced, including first-degree rape, sexual battery, and stalking. Here are some of the verdicts of the charges being read out, with Holtzclaw appearing to be crying and sobbing as each verdict is read.
Defendant is guilty of the crime of forcible oral sodomy, and punishment is set at 20 years. Count 11, rape in the first degree. Defendant is guilty of the crime of rape in the first degree, and punishment is set at 30 years.
The severity of the charges reflected the gravity of Holtzclaw's crimes and the profound impact they had on the lives of the victims.
Mr. Holtzclaw, this jury finds you guilty of the various counts. You will be remanded to the custody of the Oklahoma County Sheriff for formal sentencing set January 21st, 2016 at 10 o'clock a.m.
Following the conviction, the jury recommended a sentence of 263 years in prison for Holtzclaw. This sentence was a resounding statement that such acts of abuse and corruption would not be tolerated. It was a measure of justice for the victims and a clear message to others who may abuse their positions of power. However, the story does not end with the sentencing. Holtzclaw's case sparked a broader conversation about issues of racial bias, police misconduct, and the media's handling of violence against black women. Many questioned why this case received relatively little mainstream media attention, while others argued that it was through the power of social media and the efforts of local activists that the case gained traction. Holtzclaw's conviction was part of a larger investigation into sexual assaults by police officers, revealing a disturbing pattern of abuse within law enforcement. The fact that approximately 1,000 officers lost their licenses for sex crimes during a 6-year period is a sobering reminder of the need for improved protocols, increased accountability, and greater awareness of these issues. The case also highlighted the importance of handling DNA evidence properly and ensuring a fair and thorough investigation process. Emails revealed issues with the DNA lab related to Holtzclaw's case, raising concerns about the integrity of the evidence and the potential for wrongful convictions. This serves as a reminder of the need for continuous improvement and adherence to best practices within the criminal justice system. In the aftermath of Holtzclaw's conviction, efforts were made to provide support and resources for the victims and their communities. Organizations and activists worked tirelessly to ensure that the survivors received the help they needed to heal and rebuild their lives. It was a testament to the resilience and strength of these individuals, as well as the power of community solidarity. The case also sparked conversations about the need for improved protocols and accountability within law enforcement agencies. It served as a wake-up call, highlighting the potential for abuse of power and the importance of thorough background checks, training, and oversight. The actions of one individual should not tarnish the reputation of all law enforcement officers, but it is crucial to address systemic issues and work towards a more just and equitable system.
Was there ever anything other than that bag, same bag being palmed in your hand that you later put in your purse and acted like you found out of that purse?
Okay, so what you just presented to this jury is absolutely absurd and not factual at all.
In a shocking case that has rocked the community, former Deputy Zachary Wester of the Jackson County Sheriff's Office has been convicted of heinous crimes involving the planting of drugs during routine traffic stops. This scandalous revelation has raised serious concerns about the integrity and trustworthiness of law enforcement. Wester, a 28-year-old officer, was arrested in 2019 and faced a trial that exposed the extent of his corruption. The prosecution presented a compelling case, resulting in Wester being found guilty of 19 charges, including racketeering, official misconduct, fabricating evidence, and false imprisonment. The sentencing hearing was an emotional affair, with victims and their families sharing the devastating impact of Wester's actions. It was a case that sent shockwaves through the community of Jackson County, Florida. 28-year-old Zachary Wester, a former deputy of the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, stood accused of committing heinous crimes that shattered the trust between law enforcement and the citizens they were sworn to protect. Wester's crimes came to light in 2019 when he was arrested on charges of planting drugs inside cars during routine traffic stops. The allegations against him were nothing short of shocking, and the evidence against him was overwhelming. As the case went to trial in May, the community held its breath, waiting for justice to be served. During the trial, the prosecution presented a compelling case against Wester, unveiling a web of corruption and deceit. He faced a staggering 67 charges, including racketeering, racketeering, official misconduct, fabricating evidence, and false imprisonment. As the community grappled with the realization that one of their own had betrayed their trust, the testimonies of the witnesses painted a grim picture of Wester's actions. One of his victims, Teresa Odom, bravely took the stand and shared the devastating impact his crimes had on her life. Through tear-filled eyes, she expressed how Wester had robbed her of her credibility, causing her to miss precious moments with her grandchild. Her words resonated with the courtroom, highlighting the profound and lasting damage caused by Wester's actions.
I wish you no ill will, and you'll never know what you've done to me until you have children of your own. So.
But it wasn't just the victims who suffered. Rebecca Wester, Zachary's wife, also addressed the court, her voice trembling with emotion. She spoke of the absence her husband's actions had created in their home and the homes of their friends. It was a heartbreaking reminder that the consequences of corruption extend far beyond the immediate victims. The prosecution made use of Wester's own body cam videos to incriminate him, as well as other pieces of evidence, including a secret stash of ready-to-plant evidence in the trunk of his patrol car. As far as what his motives were, the prosecution claims he was an ambitious officer who wanted to move higher up in the hierarchy to the narcotics division, but he vehemently testified that he had no involvement in planting drugs in any of the victims' cars.
Was there ever anything other than that bag, same bag, being palmed in your hand that you later put in her purse and acted like you found out of that purse?
Okay, so what you just presented to this jury is absolutely absurd and not factual at all.
State Attorney Tom Williams delivered a powerful closing argument, emphasizing the breach of trust committed by Wester. He reminded the court that Wester had violated the very citizens he had sworn to protect, using his position of authority to victimize them. The courtroom was filled with a palpable sense of outrage as the community grappled with the betrayal they had endured. As the trial came to a close, the community anxiously awaited the judge's decision. Only 12 individuals were allowed to witness the sentencing hearing, but the court had received over 50 letters from those who wanted to show their support for Wester. It was a testament to the impact this case had on the community and their desire for justice to be served. But it wasn't just the prosecution who had their say. The defense, led by attorney Ryan Davis, made their closing argument, pleading for leniency. Davis acknowledged that Wester would be going to prison, but implored the judge to consider his lack of prior record. He painted a picture of a man who had done good and would continue to do good, despite the grave mistakes he had made. As the arguments concluded, the courtroom fell into a heavy silence. The weight of the crimes committed by Wester hung in the air, leaving everyone present grappling with the magnitude of the situation. Judge Goodman, after carefully considering all the evidence and arguments presented, prepared to deliver his verdict. In the end, Judge James Goodman delivered a sentence that reflected the severity of Wester's crimes. He sentenced him to 12 years, 6 months, and 8 days in the Florida Department of Corrections. It was a moment of closure for the victims and their families, but the scars left by Wester's actions would take much longer to heal. The crimes committed by Zachary Wester serve as a stark reminder of the importance of accountability within law enforcement. The actions of one individual can have far-reaching consequences, eroding public trust and tarnishing the reputation of an entire department. Outside the courtroom, the impact of the sentencing hearing was palpable. The community had been deeply affected by Wester's crimes, and the verdict brought a sense of closure to many. However, the scars left by his actions would not easily fade. The trust between law enforcement and the community had been shattered, and rebuilding that trust would be a long and arduous process. Judge Goodman revealed that Wester had already spent the last 58 days in the Jackson County Jail since his guilty verdict. These days would count towards his overall sentence, and he would soon be transferred to a state prison to serve the remainder of his time. It was a small measure of justice for the victims and their families, knowing that Wester would be held accountable for his actions. As the courtroom emptied, the community was left to grapple with the aftermath of this shocking case. The crimes committed by Zachary Wester had left a lasting impact, serving as a stark reminder of the importance of integrity and trust within law enforcement. It was a wake-up call for the community to demand transparency and accountability from those tasked with protecting and serving. In today's hearing, we delve into the dark and disturbing case of former Edison police officer Michael Dotro, a man who betrayed his oath to protect and serve. Dotro's crimes sent shockwaves through the community as he set fire to the home of his superior officer, Captain Mark Anderko, while the captain and his family were fast asleep inside. This act of arson was just one of the many heinous offenses committed by Dotro over a 5-year period. The charges include attempted murder, aggravated arson, official misconduct, conspiracy to tamper with a witness, and conspiracy to to retaliate. Today, we will take you through the details of Datro's sentencing, the impact on the victims, and the efforts to clean up the police department. In the annals of police misconduct, few cases are as shocking and disturbing as that of former Edison police officer Michael Datro. Datro's reign of terror spanned a 5-year period during which he committed a series of heinous crimes that left a community in fear and disbelief. One of the most egregious acts committed by Datro was the setting of a fire at the home of his superior officer, Captain Mark Anderko. It was a quiet night when Datro, fueled by a sinister motive, targeted the Anderko family while they were fast asleep inside their home. The flames engulfed the house, threatening the lives of Captain Anderko, his wife, their 2 children, and even Captain Anderko's 92-year-old mother. The sheer audacity and cruelty of Datro's actions are difficult to comprehend. He showed no regard for the safety and well-being of his fellow officers and their families. The fire could have easily resulted in tragedy, but fortunately, the Anderko family managed to escape the burning house just in time. But the arson attack was just one of the many crimes Datro committed during his tenure as a police officer. His misconduct extended far beyond that fateful night. Datro engaged in official misconduct, abusing his position of power for personal gain. He tampered with witnesses, attempting to obstruct justice and manipulate the course of investigations. Datro's actions not only compromised the integrity of the police department, but also put innocent lives at risk. Furthermore, Datro's involvement in a conspiracy to retaliate against a North Brunswick police officer showcased his vengeful and calculated nature. Seeking revenge against anyone who crossed him, Datro orchestrated a plot to harm a fellow officer who had issued a ticket to someone he knew. This vindictive behavior demonstrated a complete disregard for the law and a willingness to go to extreme lengths to satisfy his personal vendettas. Datro's criminal activities were not limited to his role as a police officer. He was also implicated in drug-related offenses, including purchasing marijuana for his wife while in uniform. The discovery of marijuana in his police duty bag further tarnished his reputation and raised serious questions about his fitness for duty. The extent of Datro's crimes is truly shocking. From arson to witness tampering, from official misconduct to drug offenses, his actions paint a picture of a man consumed by a thirst for power and revenge. The impact of his crimes reverberated throughout the community, leading to the loss of jobs for other officers who were involved with him.
The sentence to be imposed in this particular case is because Mr. Datro, through his conduct and his admissions, spanning from 1998 to this year, represents the worst that we could possibly expect from someone in our society.
Datro's guilty plea marked a turning point in the case, bringing closure to the victims and their families who had endured years of uncertainty and fear. The sentencing hearing was a culmination of the efforts made by the prosecutor's office and the Edison Police Department to hold Datro accountable for his actions. During the televised court appearance, Datro's attorney, Robert Norton, suggested that there may be 2 sides to Michael Datro. He described a cooperative and seemingly rehabilitatable individual who had built a successful restaurant and renovated houses. However, Assistant Prosecutor Curley vehemently disagreed, labeling Datro's case as one of the most shocking the state had seen in years. Curley painted a picture of a man who had taken an oath to protect and serve his community, but had instead turned his back on that oath in a vicious and calculated manner. Datro's wrath and vengeance knew no bounds, as evidenced by his involvement in various criminal activities. Curley warned that unless Datro recognized and controlled the sinister side of his nature, he was destined to offend again. The day of reckoning finally arrived for Michael Datro as he stood before Superior Court Judge Pedro Jimenez Jr. to receive his sentence. Datro, scratching his neck and forehead, showed no signs of remorse as the courtroom filled with anticipation. Middlesex County Prosecutor Andrew Carey, Edison Police Chief Thomas Bryan, Captain Mark Anderko and his wife were among those present, waiting for justice to be served.
What he's really done, and what we're going to be left with after he's walking out the door to spend the next third of his life in prison, is allow people a basis to say that our system of justice has no integrity.
Judge Pedro Jimenez Jr., in delivering the sentence, acknowledged Datro's extensive criminal history, which included 14 documented contacts with the criminal justice system before becoming a police officer. Jimenez emphasized that Datro had consistently violated the law, even after taking the position of a police officer. The judge concluded that there was no way to rehabilitate Datro and that he posed a continued threat to society. Datro remained stone-cold silent for the nearly hour-long trial while the judge laid down some of his thoughts.
Because of what this individual has done, because of him and people like him, victims are afraid to come forward to be part of the criminal justice system
With the sentencing complete, Dautro's fate was sealed. He would spend the next 17 years behind bars, contemplating the consequences of his actions. The victims and their families could finally find solace in knowing that justice had been served, and the community could begin the process of healing. The sentence handed down to Dautro was a reflection of the severity of his crimes. Under a plea agreement negotiated with Assistant Prosecutor Russell Curley, Dautro was sentenced to 20 years in state prison. However, he must serve a minimum of 17 years before becoming eligible for parole. The weight of his actions would not be easily forgotten. As the sentence was announced, a sense of relief washed over the victims and their families. Captain Ndurko, who had to flee his burning home with his loved ones, finally saw justice served. However, Dautro's lack of remorse and refusal to apologize only added to the pain and anger felt by those affected. Alicia Dautro, Michael's wife, couldn't contain her emotions and shouted, "You're a monster. You're a manipulative monster." Her outburst was quickly silenced by a sheriff's officer, but her words echoed the sentiments of many who had been deceived by the man they once knew. The impact of Dautro's crimes extended far beyond the immediate victims. The community was left reeling, questioning the integrity of the police force they had once trusted. The actions of one officer had tarnished the reputation of an entire department, but the response from the prosecutor's office and the Edison Police Department was swift and resolute. Since the charges against Dautro were first announced in May 2013, Prosecutor Carey, along with the prosecutor's office and Edison Police, had been working tirelessly to analyze the situation within the department. Their goal was to remove the cancerous officers and restore faith in the police force. Carey's efforts to clean up the department were evident as he stood alongside Chief Bryan and Chief of Detectives Gerald McAleer in the courthouse lobby. They had successfully removed officers connected to Dautro's offenses and addressed other inappropriate acts within the department. The commitment to change was palpable. Chief Bryan, grateful for the assistance in making the Edison Police Department more professional, acknowledged the challenges they had faced in the wake of high-profile incidents of police misconduct. The department had undergone a significant transformation, hiring 53 new officers in the past 4 years and implementing safeguards to prevent further corruption. The sentencing of Dautro marked a turning point for the department. It was a clear message that such misconduct would not be tolerated, and steps had been taken to ensure that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. The Edison Police Department was on a path to redemption, serving the community with integrity and dedication. As Dautro began his prison sentence, the community could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Justice had been served, but the scars left by his actions would not easily fade. The victims and their families would forever carry the weight of the trauma they endured, while the community would continue to rebuild and heal.
Check out the videos on your screen for more fun and engaging content.